Yep. Welcome to the live season finale of The Box Score. I'm your host, Brian Danuff. We wanted to do something special for our last episode, so we had to call in a few favors and use our whole budget for this. But we'd like to welcome a very special guest, a former NFC champion quarterback and GQ Citizen of the Year, Colin Kaepernick.
Hey Brian, it's great to be here. I genuinely have nothing else to do on a Tuesday night.
Well, regardless, it's an honor. You always find a way into the headlines and, frankly, into our hearts.
Well, Brian, I think what it comes down to is that sometimes you need to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, you really stand up for what you believe in.
That's right, Brian. I consider myself someone that the country can look up to in these troubling times.
Interesting. Well, Colin, you're the most controversial figure in all of sports. Last time we heard from you, you were suing the NFL and all 32 teams for keeping you out of the league for your political beliefs. What's the latest on that front?
You know, Brian, this lawsuit has been a long, grueling process, and it can be easy to consider dropping it and moving on from football. But the incredible support of my fans keeps me motivated to get back on the field. In fact, here's just a few comments by my fans that prove I still belong in the NFL. Niners fan 2013 writes, benching him was stupid. Gabbert is a million times worse than Kaepernick. Niner Faithful 49 says, please stay, Colin Kaepernick. And Totally Not Michael Crabtree says, all he needs to do is regain his confidence and learn how to throw a spiral. Forget that one, but you get the point, right, Brian?
Yeah, but hey, it seems like you really do have quite the following. I mean, you were named GQ Citizen of the Year. However, some people argue that there were other athletes who were more deserving, like Houston Texans defensive end J.J. Watt. He raised over $30 million for Hurricane Harvey relief. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Brian, I'll tell you. What I did started a movement. What JJ did was great and all, but sometimes it's more important to start the conversation and get the ball rolling than it is to actually do something.
I don't see a problem with that.
Well, Brian, it's a lot like how you run your show. You host it and all, but your talent does all the actual heavy lifting. You're just the pretty face for the cameras.
Wait, you've actually watched the box score before?
Yeah, as long as Roger Goodell and the owners are going to keep me out of the league, there's not much else for me to do. For some reason, your show keeps coming up in my suggestions when I'm trying to look up my highlights from last season.
Well, Colin, that may be because there weren't any.
Okay, you know what? I don't need this. I have 2 offers from Canadian Football League teams and the Cleveland Browns.
Wait, the Browns offered you a contract? Why don't you just go play for them?
Would you want to just go play for the Browns?
Good point. Well, Colin, that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us, and good luck in the future.
Thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure.
Wait, you were kneeling this whole time? That was so stupid. Anyway, I'm Brian Danuff, and welcome to the Box Score. One of the most interesting aspects of being a sports fan is how your beliefs and opinions are constantly challenged. What you thought about one player or team yesterday may not apply today. For instance, just a couple months ago, I thought my New York Football Giants had as good a shot as anyone to go all the way. Odell Beckham Jr.'s ankle, nothing to worry about. Ben McAdoo's inferior coaching abilities, who cares? You can't spell elite without Eli, baby. Yeah, predicting the Giants to win the Super Bowl was definitely not my finest hour. But hey, I've learned a lot by watching the Giants this season. My perception of the team today is completely different from what it was in September. This brings me to another evolving viewpoint of mine, the National Baseball Hall of Fame. It's that time of year again when the baseball community goes to war with each other over whether stars like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Mark McGwire deserve to be enshrined in Cooperstown despite their history with performance-enhancing drugs. Adding even more fire to the flame this year is a letter from Vice Chairman of the Hall of Fame, Joe Morgan, who addressed the Baseball Writers Association of America. In the letter, the Hall of Fame second baseman urged the writers to invoke the integrity clause and keep, quote, cheaters off of their ballots. If Morgan had written this letter just a few years ago, I would have completely agreed with him. To me, the Hall of Fame was a sacred place where we honor not only baseball's best players, but baseball's best people. Bonds, Clemens, and a bunch of other players from the 1990s and 2000s clearly didn't care for the integrity of the game. They knew what they were doing was wrong, but did it anyway. It disgusted me, and for a while, I viewed the steroid era as a dark time in baseball history that didn't deserve commemorating. However, I now realize there was a serious lapse in my judgment. I had been acting as if baseball had always been an innocent children's game, free from controversy until the likes of Mark McGwire showed up, and that couldn't be further from the truth. In case you forgot, African American players weren't allowed on the same field as white players until 1947, and the last team to integrate, the Boston Red Sox, didn't do so until 1959. Yet, visit the Hall of Fame and you'll find the plaque of Red Sox owner Tom Yawkey, who was not only reluctant to employ African Americans, but protected and supported clubhouse attendant Donald Fitzpatrick, who later admitted to sexually abusing minors during Yawkey's tenure. Other Hall of Famers like Tris Speaker and Cap Anson were even members of the KKK. I'm sorry, but the Hall of Fame has always been tainted. And I don't know about you, but inducting steroid users sounds a whole lot better than inducting Klansmen. There's something else Cooperstown purists overlook. The Hall of Fame isn't just a Hall of Fame. Anyone who's been there knows it's also a fantastic museum. Just as important, if not more so, than honoring great players is the Hall's preservation and documentation of every second of baseball history. When I visited the Hall of Fame, there were exhibits about the Black Sox scandal, the Negro Leagues, and yes, the steroid era. Believe it or not, Barry Bonds' bat and Roger Clemens' glove are already in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. We can't pretend their careers never happened. They inspired and captivated a whole new generation of fans and are the reason guys like Mike Trout and Aaron Judge fell in love with the sport. Oh, and if there's a singular person who should be held accountable for the steroid era, it's Commissioner Bud Selig. He allowed the rampant use of PEDs to keep ratings and revenues high and only cracked down when it was no longer profitable. And guess what? He was inducted into the Hall of Fame this summer. Allowing steroid users into the Hall of Fame isn't something I originally vouched for, but we need to stop treating these players like they're the only ones in the history of the sport who did something wrong. I love baseball, but it was never innocent and never will be. The best thing we can do is marvel and appreciate what happened on the field while still acknowledging and learning from what happened off of it. Well, you know what they say. Nothing excites millennial sports fans more than a discussion about baseball, followed up by a discussion about golf. Angel Salcido is here and in the cleanup spot, ready to tell us about Tiger Woods' latest comeback attempt. Angel?
Thanks, Brian. Tiger Woods is back, just 2 days away from returning to golf in the Hero World Classic, which runs from November 30th to December 3rd. Tiger hasn't played since February when he had to drop out of the Dubai Desert Classic because of recurring back spasms. However, he was cleared to resume full golf activities in late October and is now ready to return to top form. Former top 5 players and fan favorites Jason Day and Ricky Fowler say Tiger looked relaxed and comfortable in the rounds they played with him, while Tiger says it's the best he's felt in 3 years. After 2013, Tiger suffered injury after injury, from knee to back to shoulder, so it's safe to say it's been a rough decade for the 41-year-old. After his most recent injury in July, Woods has taken extra caution in taking his time with his return. World-class golf instructor Hank Haney says that Tiger's on track to make waves in the PGA. Over the last few years, the thing that's held Tiger back the most has been his back problems. Sadly, the spasms to spinal alignments stem from his aging body just not being able to keep up with his almost inhuman swing speed. Tiger even admitted earlier this year, "I'm not going to be hitting the ball 330 yards anymore," clearly expressing his awareness of the problem. Because of this, Tiger's made an effort to refine other parts of his game to compensate for his reduction in power, but it remains to be seen whether he'll ever return to the Tiger Woods of legend. Not only will Tiger Woods be playing like a different golfer, he'll be looking like one too. Tiger signed a deal with TaylorMade to supply him with equipment, as his longtime sponsor Nike Golf is no longer there. The PGA Tour has sorely missed Tiger Woods, and fans are hopeful that the Hero World Classic will be another Tiger Woods Classic. Top form or not, I wish you all the best, Tiger. The game of golf needs you, and I need you. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Angel. Well, when we return, John Newton and Jacob Fortgang are here to discuss the future of both NASCAR and Formula One. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, Emersonians. I'm Peyton Lewis, the host of the Evie-nominated and Evie-losing show, Common Agenda. Last season, we may have had a midlife crisis, but this summer we really found ourselves. After some deep soul-searching and some long nights mourning our defeat, We're back here for another season of the saltiest content and shenanigans on the Emerson channel. This season we'll dive deep into Emerson's favorite subcultures: film bros, hipsters, and other white boys with brown hair. Turn us on Monday evenings at 8:30 on the Emerson channel.
Guys, I cannot have any more ramen.
Yeah, this food is really disgusting.
These are herbal cough drops.
Well, they're better than nothing.
I have some fruit if you guys want.
Those are Skittles.
Just trying my best.
Well, maybe we can just go to the DH?
What?
Oh my god, that stuff is prison food.
Well, do you have any other ideas?
Well, I'm like starving, so like we have to do something.
Did someone say something? Hi kids, Kitchen Man here. Do you know you can tune into Emerson Channel Called Kitchen for great dorm-friendly, budget-friendly recipes?
Okay, but like what if I need to go out to brunch with my girls?
Try Taste of Boston, where we profile great local restaurants in the Boston area.
What if I only want to eat competitive chef's food?
Tune in to Sliced, our brand new competitive cooking show.
I want to watch College Kitchen.
But wait! We are College Kitchen!
Welcome back to the Box Score. Pro racing has long trailed other sports like baseball and football in popularity, but that hasn't stopped NASCAR and Formula One from building towards very bright futures. Joining me to discuss this are John Newton and, making his Box Score debut, Jacob Forking, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob, welcome to the show. And, you know, I mentioned NASCAR having a bright future, but in reality, it seems like Formula One's starting to get the edge. What do you think that is?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, with the season just ending, we have to congratulate Mercedes on winning the Constructors' Cup.
We have to congratulate one of their drivers, Lewis Hamilton, winning his 4th F1 World Championship.
Absolutely. But to answer your question, yes, F1 is definitely on the uprise. With young stars like Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen and, of course, Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, my gosh.
With a shoey. Daniel Ricciardo celebrates with drinking champagne out of his racing boot. It's just so entertaining.
Oh, man.
Very Australian of him. Like Jacob mentioned, F1 stars are on the rise, but NASCAR stars are dropping like flies. For example, Carl Edwards, Danica Patrick, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, we've all seen them leave in recent years, and of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Leaving the sport, stepping out of the car.
Right. Well, you know, in fact, this kind of lack of young talent in NASCAR and the abundance of young talent in F1 has really been a reason why it's kind of exploded in the United States. In fact, ESPN just bought the rights to F1 from NBC, and that's huge, to my opinion, because we don't even see these big TV deals in sports. That's kind of ancient history, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, Brian. And they actually splashed $4 million to grab the contract from NBC.
Wow.
They're going to be showing all 22 races for the first time since 1962.
Wow.
So that's extremely important for them. But with ratings going up 18% from last year, it makes sense. It makes sense for them to really splash the big cash on this one because they're going to see returns.
Not only is F1 investing in television, they're also diving into esports with the F1 2017 World Grand Finals just ending.
Right.
And Fernando Alonso has also purchased an F1 team, becoming the first F1 driver to do so.
Well, something I wanted to talk about is there is a huge difference from F1 and NASCAR. And, you know, if it's going to succeed in the United States, it has to attract those longtime NASCAR fans who love the 4-hour races, who love the collisions, who love how someone who starts in the back can finish first. What's going to attract fans in the United States? Because F1 is international. It's not in the United States.
Absolutely, it's global. And the change in structure is the interesting part, and that's the entertaining part. F1 is fast, it's furious, but it's also very tactical, with multiple sets of tires to choose from in any weather condition possible. Not only does the pit crew and the crew chief have to be on point with, as well as the engineer, because they have to actually build their own cars in Formula One.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You also have to qualify well.
Yeah,
and there's a simple point structure to understand, unlike NASCAR.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the races have a set time limit. And it's unlike NASCAR where it can stretch, baseball length kind of getting boring at that point, watching all those left turns.
Right.
You know, NASCAR, it's quick. It's even shorter than a normal basketball game. So it's really quick. It's really engaging. But it's also a weekend long, which is great. You know, if you want to go out with your friends, there's an American Grand Prix down in Austin, Texas,
Right.
and
Oh, wow.
it's been absolutely booming in the past couple seasons.
Right. Well, you know, with F1 again, to me, it's so like different from NASCAR, which is the crazy thing to me. It's when I watch F1, it just doesn't feel like the kind of pro racing I'm used to, and I just was wondering like what got you guys into F1? I mean,
You know, that's an interesting
it's such an
comment.
obscure sport in
No,
America
absolutely,
right now.
absolutely.
It's growing,
you know, but it was NBC. It was
Yeah.
NBC building that, and that's why ESPN taking it over is such a huge step.
Mm-hmm.
Because NBC Sports, when they became what they are, it was through the deals of English Premier League and of F1, and they brought these international sports to the United States, and they've grown. And ESPN sees that, and they're taking risk. You know, John was telling me earlier that ESPN is also not talking about Monday Night Football anymore. They're looking to move away from it, which is such a huge step. You
Right,
know?
and we see all the players who don't want to play Thursday Night Football either. I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely.
When you overtake an F1, it's not like a traditional NASCAR pass where you know you draft, go on the inside, and there's so many variables in F1 that make it exciting, like the newly added super soft tires, like the DRS system that gives you a little bit of speed boost right when you need it down those long stretches. But it's so tactical. It's in a soccer game, length of time, but it's so much faster, and there's so many elements that make it fantastic. And with the fewer number of drivers, it's easier to see them as stars.
Yeah.
Right. Well, also with NASCAR, just want to touch on them a little bit. Do you think there are going to be enough NASCAR fans who make the jump to F1? I mean, all these iconic racers, Dale Earnhardt Jr., as you said, they're all leaving. So really, who's left to root for, really? I mean, in NASCAR at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. It's hard. You don't have that star power that you used to. And it's a real shame because for a long time, NASCAR really was the pinnacle of motorsports, but at least in the United States. But, you know, we can move away from it because you're starting to see that all those guys and that old guard is really just slowly phasing.
Right. Well, guys, it was so great to have you guys here. Thanks so much for the insight. It's been a pleasure all season long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as you guys know, no 2 weeks in sports are exactly alike, and it can be hard to keep up with who's doing well and who isn't. Well, luckily, Kate Foltz is here to sort through the madness in a segment we like to call Who's Hot and Who's Not. Kate?
Thanks, Brian. I'm going to start this segment off with something that's not so hot right now, reality TV. Why, you may ask? Because why watch cringy reality TV when you can just pop some popcorn and watch the drama between LeVar Ball and President Donald Trump unfold? Unless you've been living under a rock, you know about LiAngelo Ball and the 2 other UCLA basketball players stealing while in China, and the absurdity of what has followed since. So, after President Trump tweeted wondering if Ball, Cody Riley, and Jalen Hill would thank him for their return from China, they did so in a press conference. So, we're done here, right? Not if LeVar Ball is involved. LeVar did not thank President Trump for his alleged aid in returning the players to the U.S., to which Trump tweeted, "I should have left them in jail." Then, all of a sudden, LeVar Ball is on CNN, again refusing to thank Donald Trump and asking Chris Cuomo if he thanked the doctor for bringing him into this world. The drama continued as Trump reacted on Twitter by calling LeVar an ungrateful fool and a poor man's version of Don King. I don't see this issue being resolved anytime soon, but hopefully President Trump can find a more important matter to tweet about. Moving on to actual sports, let's talk about the Auburn Tigers. Beating undefeated Alabama will definitely get you on the hot list. Last Saturday, the Tigers defeated the Crimson Tide 26-14 in the Iron Bowl, handing Bama their first loss since last year's championship game. With this win, Auburn improved to 10-2 on the season, breaking into the top 4 for the first time all year. They even knocked Alabama to number 5, putting their playoff hopes in question. Auburn quarterback Jarrett Stidham completed 21 of 28 passes for 237 yards, and running back Kerryon Johnson continued his impressive season, rushing for 104 yards on 30 carries, scoring 2 touchdowns. Auburn's linebackers also performed well, as Deshaun Davis had 7 tackles and Trey Williams finished the game with 5 tackles and a fumble recovery. Auburn was fined $250,000 by the SEC after its crowd violated rules and stormed the field. But hey, I'd say beating Alabama is well worth the money. This Saturday, Auburn will take on a 6th-ranked Georgia in the SEC Championship, a game they must win in order to keep their playoff spot. Switching to a team that's seriously struggling at the moment, let's take a look at the LA Clippers. The Clippers started off the season 4-0, only to follow that by losing 9 of their last 12 games. The Clippers have been battling injuries all season thus far, with starting point guard Milos Teodosic out indefinitely to a plantar fascia injury, Danilo Gallinari sidelined with a glute injury, and Patrick Beverley is out for the season after having surgery on his right knee. That leaves the Clippers with DeAndre Jordan, Lou Williams, and an incredibly shallow remainder of the roster. The Clippers are one of the worst fourth-quarter teams this season, and Jordan is averaging the most turnovers out of his 10 years in the league. To make matters worse, last night Austin Rivers ended up falling on Blake Griffin, and now Griffin is indefinitely out with a sprained MCL. Perhaps this is just another case of the Kardashian-Jenner curse, and Griffin should just break up with Kendall for the sake of the team. We'll see if that happens. Hopefully, what is left of the Clippers roster can remain healthy and have more success in the month of December. For our final member of Who's Hot and Who's Not, this Hot Award goes to U.S. Olympic winter sports. Recently, 2 Russian Olympians were stripped of their skeleton medals they received in the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics for doping. This now puts the U.S. above Russia for total medal standings in the Sochi Olympics and gives 2 Americans medal upgrades. Matt Antoine could now receive the silver medal, and Katie Uliander, who originally fell short of the podium by 4/100ths of a second, would receive her first ever Olympic medal. For another U.S. winter sport that's hot right now, that would be curling. The trials for the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea took place last weekend in a thrilling exhibition. And for Team Roth, the females, and Team Schuster on the male side will now be representing the United States. The teams include a pair of siblings, Becca and Matt Hamilton, who are both first-time Olympians. Becca was named the USA Curling Female Athlete of the Year for 2017, and together this year her and her brother Matt won the national title in mixed doubles, a format that will be making its Olympic debut in Pyeongchang. If the siblings' past success is any indication of the upcoming Olympics, hopefully they can bring the U.S. its second ever medal for the sport. That's all for Who's Hot and Who's Not. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Kate. Coming up after the break, it is way too early to predict the Super Bowl. But we're going to do it anyway. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Aaron Kinigsberg, host of EIV's The Dish. Tune in every Friday for your chance to see what kind of bow tie I pulled out of my closet today.
Maggie, did you print out the script?
No, that was your job.
Maggie, oh my god, I do it every week.
No,
I told you this is the one
but we
I
talked
didn't
about
want
this.
responsibility.
Okay, I need to pick my wedgie.
Oh my god, look, they got us slushies.
Brain freeze.
Oh my god, we're here.
He's queer.
Now get used to it. Come on, give me my mic. Mic me.
Okay, so.
Hi, I'm Christian Mudrick.
And I'm Maggie Morlap.
And you're watching Real Reactions.
On the Emerson channel.
Welcome back to the Box Score. We're nearing the end of our season finale, so it's time to turn things over to our bullpen to close it out. I'm joined by Jack Aylmer, Angel Salcido, and Tyler Mashgori to have the mother of all debates. Boys, Super Bowl 52, it's fast approaching. Who do you have winning a big game in February?
Well, Brian, after thinking over it over the past couple weeks, I honestly think my pick is going to be the Minnesota Vikings this year.
Ooh, okay. Crazy.
Right.
Why is that?
So I believe the Minnesota Vikings have the best chance because they have a very talented offense and defense going into the year. And they've kind of showed that they don't really need a great quarterback to succeed in their offense. Like Case Keenum.
Yeah, is Keenum still the quarterback in the Super Bowl?
Is still the quarterback as of now, and if he keeps balling out, I think it's possible. But it's not like they have like some kind of off the street guy that they're going to get in the playoffs. They have Teddy Bridgewater to turn to if things go awry. But.
Yeah, not bad. We talked about quarterback play just then. The best quarterback in the NFL, I think, will take home the Lombardi Trophy, and that's Tom Brady.
Again?
Again.
Oh
the guy's
my
just
God.
played out of his
Come
mind
on
this
now.
year at age 40 season.
That's no fun.
It's no fun, but it's going to happen. He's leading the NFL passers by 300 yards, 3,300 and some change there. Earlier in the season, I got on the Patriots a little bit for their lack of a pass rush, and that's still a problem, but their defensive secondary has just looked a lot better. Stephon Gilmore is so much more integrated into this scheme than he was at the beginning of the year. He seems to understand it, and those guys are playing a lot better. The linebackers behind the defensive line are playing a lot better. They're still going to need to generate some sacks. They did so against the Miami Dolphins in Week 11, but that's a trend that they're going to have to see continue, and it's going to start with that secondary. But overall, the offense is just clicking. Brandon Cooks has been an invaluable addition to this Patriots offense, and those guys are just going to roll to another trophy.
Angel, who's going to be?
We're talking good quarterback play, right?
We're talking good quarterback play. Yeah.
How about
I know you're gonna.
This guy, Carson Bumbleclot Wentz,
Oh my
the
God.
leader of the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, right now. The best team for a Super Bowl pick, and why people talk about their offense. I love Carson Wentz. People talk about their offense: Carson Wentz, LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, Nelson Aguilar. But how about their defense? We're talking about a team in the last month. Their last 4 opponents have only had 238 yards or less.
Sure.
That hasn't been seen from the Eagles since 1991, and dare I say it, the gangrene defense.
Just to be clear, you're saying the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
This is what I'm saying.
First
and
Super
why
Bowl.
do I say that? Because of Carson Bumbleclot Wentz.
Why do you say that?
I mean, well, Carson Wentz doesn't have any playoff experience, so do you think they can rely on him when he gets to the playoffs?
That whole core that you just mentioned, none of those guys, aside from LeGarrette Blount, who, by the way, won his ring with the Patriots, none of those guys really have postseason experience. It is a very young core there.
But that's the thing. They don't have a weak point. You could say that LeGarrette Blount is the only person with playoff experience, but at the end of the day, Carson Wentz is an MVP caliber player. Just because he doesn't have
season.
Exactly. Now we're going to talk about a player without playoff experience. He's still going to perform the way he always performs. Why? Because he's the best quarterback in the league.
I don't know about that. I mean,
I don't know.
Peyton Manning always performed in the regular season, but I'm honestly really interested. The Minnesota Vikings, I think it might be even a little bit weirder than the Eagles. Not by much, but it is. It's a weird pick. I mean, I know they're hosting Super Bowl. What do you think can get them to beat either the Eagles or the Patriots in the playoffs?
Well, Brian, I'll tell you. I think that the offense has a lot of great moving parts to it. They showed flashes of their incredible passing game over the past couple of years and was kind of hindered by a featured back like Adrian Peterson. But now that he's gone, they can kind of focus more on their talented passers and receivers. Like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are just lighting up the league right now in many receiving categories. So when you have two focal points of the offense that are just doing great on either side of each other, that doesn't really need a great quarterback to push them over the top, I think that's important. In addition to having a great and talented defense that has playoff experience. They were one missed field goal away from beating the Seahawks just a few years ago.
Now you mentioned, excuse me, Jack. You mentioned Teddy Bridgewater. How about his knee, though?
Well, I mean, I think that's a question mark, but I think that's something that's going to be answered very soon. And regardless, they still have Case Keenum to rely on. If you guys remember, or might not, Teddy Bridgewater going into last season was poised for a breakout season. They were saying he looks much better in practice. He's making all these great throws. He looks like an incredible player. And then he had an injury in practice that was a total freak injury. And apparently he's looking about where he was last season. So if he gets a little bit more time to kind of ramp things up before he gets into the playoffs, I think he can be the guy who takes them all the way to the end.
Okay, can we just time out here for a second? Did you just use the phrase Case Keenum as a quarterback to rely on? I don't think that's ever been said.
Have you watched it all this season?
He's looked great, but there are times where he allows the opposing team to get back in the game. We saw it on Thanksgiving Day when the Vikings took on the Lions. He allowed Matt Stafford and the Vikings offense to get back in that football game. Minnesota was dominating that first half, but it was, inability of Keenum to continue rolling into the second half,
Did they
which
lose
allowed
those games, though?
They didn't.
They
They
did.
didn't.
You wanna know
they
why?
didn't. But do you
Because
think
they
Tom
have other
Brady's going to
people-
give you the opportunity? Do you think Tom Brady, New England Patriots offense, is going to give you that opportunity for a slow start?
I don't think he'll give you that opportunity, but I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of one of those things where if Tom Brady gets down by enough and the Vikings can just dominate them.
Like 28
If Tom Brady gets down by enough.
Like 28
Yeah,
to
no,
3?
yeah,
28 to 3.
It's 28 to 3 in the third quarter.
Exactly.
You can't
There's
even
no
say
way.
that. No way.
There's no way.
I think he can
No.
do the greatest thing in NFL history twice.
Look, I
in
hate to
consecutive
say
years.
this. I hate to
Probably.
say this, but I'm kind of with Jack right now. I just can't imagine how this Patriots team doesn't go back to back. I don't know. Like
I surely can tell
I
you.
can't pick.
The
The Eagles, though.
Take
The
his side.
Eagles, really?
The Eagles, yes. You can't bring. They were already an amazing team, and then you bring in Jay Ajayi. Are you kidding me?
All
They
right.
don't have a weak point. That's what you guys aren't
He's
understanding.
overrated.
Well,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
oh,
Well.
slow.
Okay.
He's
We
slow.
got to wrap this up. Look, Tyler, maybe. Jack, probably. Angel, no way. Anyway, that'll do it for Season 4 of The Box Score. I'd like to thank my co-executive producer, Richard Fielko, and our fantastic cast and crew for their incredible dedication and hard work all season long. I'd also like to thank all of our viewers, especially those of you who tuned in live tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll see you in the spring, but in the meantime, for Angel Salcido, Tyler Mashgori, John Newton, Jacob Fortgang, Jack Aylmer, and Kate Foltz, I'm Brian Danuff. Have a happy, healthy holiday and New Year. Good night.